we've had some conversations about electric mobility and charging infrastructure and various other aspects. And the tendency is to speak about personal mobility. What's the first thing that you think of when you think of electric mobility? You think of green number plates, you think of cars that you might be driving or things that you might be contemplating, or somebody calling it a toy car. Yes, that's what you think of. But this panel and these gentlemen and the work that they're doing is very different. It does not have to do with personal mobility. And they feel that what they're doing is going to bring the real change. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. They're working in commercial vehicles. And there are applications of electric mobility in commercial vehicles, building up the ecosystem. And that's primarily, gentlemen, what we're focused on talking about and telling our audience about today. Let's start with you, sir. Because I think, and by the way, the entire ecosystem more or less is represented. We have Sanjeev that is with BillionE, and he runs a fleet of commercial vehicles that are powered by electric. We have Ravin, as well as Anshuman, who are at the start of the ecosystem, and they build the chargers that effectively charge this fleet, so that without that it's not going to work. And you have Sandeep, who essentially facilitates the entire ecosystem that is effectively financing a lot of these legs. So hopefully I've laid the context for this conversation. Let me start with you, Sanjeev, because ultimately you're operating the vehicles that are creating these fleets. Do you think that unfairly people talk about personal mobility too much when they're talking about electric mobility and the drive towards that?
Yeah, it's the optics. Alex, thank you for this wonderful session. As a car user and a two-wheeler, three-wheeler, it's more visible in the city area. But we forget to believe that our day starts with the milk, which is delivered through a truck. And the entire day, whether it is the food, your clothing, your machineries, everything depends on the transportation. And with a growing economy like ours, you can't get away with the road freight. And as long as that is happening, then somebody has to move goods from point A to point B. And that's the sweet spot BillionE identified. But just to add you up, I believe there are 5 elements. Of course, the customer is out there who is keen, who is sensible to switch from fossil fuel based to more sustainable. But then the OEMs have rolled up their sleeves. Legacy OEMs are the new age OEMs are introducing the product. And then comes you rightly mentioned the fuel. In this case, the reliable and dependable charging infrastructure. So the CPOs come and they depend on my friends here to give you a robust charging solutions. The fourth element, to do all these things, you need the capital. And without vitamin M, I think the whole equation is void. And the Sandeep and the likes of Sandeep help us in achieving that. But in most of the forums I have seen, we forget about the fifth element, and which is very close to my heart, is the pilot or the driver. Eventually, when the rubber hits the road, it's the driver who has taken your product, he has taken your goods, he has taken the responsibility to move it from point A to point B. So at BillionE, we are now trying to see how we integrate closely in cooperation mode with all these 5 elements and make the sustainable transition a reality.
Let's talk about a few numbers though. Ravin, Anshuman, I'll come to you in just a bit. We were talking just before the session, and a few of the facts that you threw at me were actually a little startling, because I must confess that even I was in the school of thought that if we're moving towards an electric future and mobility towards that, then individuals need to make the choice to go electric. But that's not true. What are the numbers that support that?
Sure, thanks for that question, Alex. And I think just before I get to the numbers, why are we trying to be electric and why are we going to clean mobility or zero emission mobility? And that is because, one, we want to delever from the tyranny of the hydrocarbon molecule, not to have to import fuel. And two, we want our children to have better quality air in the cities, right? And it's the emissions from diesel and petrol that are impacting the AQI. How do you do that? How do we achieve that in India? The fastest, right? There's 360 million vehicles registered in India on the roads today. 82% of those are 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles. 12% of those are trucks and buses. Only the balance, 6 to 8%, are cars. And therefore, the conversation, as you just started, around cars, personal mobility, is a fallacy. The way to clean up India's air and the way to delever from the hydrocarbon molecule is to focus on the 2- and the 3-wheelers and then the trucks and the buses. Already, an overwhelming majority of 3-wheelers being sold in India are electric. First year in history, 2025, there are more electric 3-wheelers than ICE 3-wheelers being sold. The journey on 2-wheelers is already being seen. Karthikeya mentioned this morning, how many green number plates do you see? You know, in 2020, it was one a month, then it became one a week, one a day, one an hour, now you see one a minute because so many 2-wheelers have already converted. But the big move is buses, which is what the Indian government has done really well. The next tender coming out for 15,000 buses for 1 year, right? If you look at Australia, it's 150 buses. 15,000 buses are going to be converted from ICE to electric. And then finally, it'll be the trucks, starting with intracity and then intercity. So the 360 million vehicles, let's focus on where the real big bang is going to be, and it's public transportation.
Okay, Anshuman, come into this, because you acquired a company in the United States, and ultimately the question that I want to ask you as an OEM, as a manufacturer of a part of this entire network or ecosystem, is the availability of technology and the indigenization of that technology. How much of a challenge is that for Indian companies, and where do you see indigenization and Atmanirbharta, which is a focus for all companies and the government as well, take place in the electric mobility ecosystem?
That's a very pertinent question because today if you look at fossil fuel, we are importing a lot of, in fact 95% of the fossil fuel or the oil and gas is getting imported in the country. And we don't want to repeat the same thing in the electric mobility space, because if you're going to be dependent on somebody else, then you are moving from one thing to other where you are not actually doing a great job, right? So to that extent, but the good part is in this space, a lot of investment is happening, a lot of policies support from government side in terms of a lot of promotional schemes wherein, if you invest in infrastructure, R&D, government is providing support through, PM E-Drive scheme. Then there are PMP guidelines which are focused on manufacturing of cells, batteries, ACC, PLI and all that. So as an OEM, and because a lot of stuff has to be done by the OEMs on the product side, right? Whether it is manufacturing of vehicles, whether it is manufacturing of chargers, what we do. And of course, how do you ensure that what you are creating, because at the end of the day, any subsidy or any support falls flat if the end product is not good. And then it is about hardcore commercial acumen comes into play, that why do even I want to switch over if the product is not good, and if it is not as seamless or easy to use, typically an ICE truck. If an ICE truck is easy to operate, the EV has to be similar, right? And the charging process has to be similarly flawless and simpler, so that even
Is it though? Is it? I'm going to just interrupt there to ask the question. So, for example, and a lot of people here are in New Delhi, but then a simple example would be a drive from Mumbai to Pune. You have to go past the ghats, and you see a bunch of ICE trucks that break down along that path. The question is for you, sir, because you run a fleet of trucks that are powered by electric. Are they capable of doing that journey flawlessly?
Of course. So the technology behind is the energy transition. In case of fossil fuel, diesel or CNG, it's the chemical energy, you need to convert it into mechanical energy, and there is a delayed response time. Whereas in case of electric motors, it's instantaneous. Yeah, you just allow the current to flow and the motor spins at the desired torque. So in all categories of the vehicles, the drivability of an electric vehicle is by far superior. That's one point. The second point is the efficiency of conversion. You're transforming energy from one form to another form. The best known diesel engines may be at around 65-70% overall tank to wheel efficiency. And the worst of the electric EV could be anywhere up 80, 82% efficiency, and the good vehicles are at about 90%. So it's not just only the energy transition, but it's also the amount of energy what you consume while you get that entire driving comfort. Yeah.
Okay, so I do want to come to you, and very quickly in 30 seconds, if possible, I want you to explain to the audience why I was calling you a facilitator, because ultimately you provide the money that greases this entire system. So first that, and two, what is the need in your opinion for capital to facilitate this ecosystem, and is there enough availability of capital, or do you think that there is a sizable need to bolster that?
Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me on the session. I love the terminology Sanjeev just used, vitamin M. Good to be providing there. There's a lot of vitamin M available. Happy to state here, we've just closed one of the largest fundraisers in the electric mobility history in India, raised $405 million a month back, backed by Green Climate Fund and Macquarie, which tells you the amount of institutional capital. I mean, Green Climate Fund happens to be a UN-backed multilateral, one of the largest climate impact investors in India. For them putting out $200 million in a project which is, 1.5 years old, I have 20 employees. My son was telling me when I raised $405 million, Dad, 405 by 20 is 20 million per person. I said, unfortunately, it's not coming to my bank account. But, and that's just capital. You could raise leverage and raise a debt. So capital, very important, but I can tell you the amount of money that's flowing behind electric is phenomenal. There are enough and more of green funds willing to put their money. There are a lot of impact investors who are out there trying to put their bets on a system or on an ecosystem which is accelerating. Credit goes to the government of India, frankly. Consistency of policies, just the amount of focus that they've demonstrated in the transition from ICE to electric. And to your second point, why an ecosystem play is important and how does Vertelo play a role in that is the journey for electric, capital is no longer a concern, but that's not the only solution you want. I think the biggest phobia that people have is anything about transportation, whether you're transferring goods or passengers from one place to the other, is whether I'll get there. Will there be enough charging available? Thankfully with Ravin and Anshuman, that's being fulfilled. But there's a lot happening before an electric vehicle comes on the ground. The mindset of the operator, the questions in his mind. So that's where Vertelo steps in, helping him identify the right kind of OEM and asset, building out the charging infrastructure, building out the depot, pulling the energy from the grid, variabilizing it or Uberizing it, giving it to him on a per unit or a per kilometer basis, getting the OEM, because today an ICE vehicle breaks down somewhere, you can anytime pick up the phone and call anybody. Sure. Electric, that doesn't happen. It has to be serviced at your doorstep. So we create a depot where the OEM comes at your doorstep, battery recycling, putting the battery to an alternative use case, then at the end of the life cycle, putting the asset to a different use case from an intercity battery to an intracity. So we take care of the entire journey, and not just financing.
It's scalable as well. So a couple of very, very quick last questions. So first to you, and it's a quick answer that I'm seeking, comparable with the cost of operating freight in electric mobility versus traditional, is it comparable at this point, and can it get cheaper?
Yeah. First of all, sustainability cannot come at cost.
Sure.
So it's the collective effort to beat at par.
Sorry to rush you, sir, but they've already asked me to wrap.
Yeah, and then the opportunity is to bring down the costs. And we see in the next 2 to 3 years, EV would become a natural choice for most of these.
Because it'll be cheaper?
Of course.
Because it'll be cheap. Gentlemen, so in terms of technology, my worry, the way that I look at the system is that we're going too quickly and we're seeing technology change too rapidly. You've already put capital down, you've created an ecosystem. But what if you have a hydrogen cell powered vehicle 2 years from now? Is that not the biggest threat for you, and you prepared for that?
Short answer is yes. the only companies that will survive are companies that can be across all spectrums of technology and are able to move very quickly, making mistakes, learning from them, and being able to be cost competitive.
Anshuman, you want?
Yeah, same here. I mean, but the energy transition is going to happen in phases and through, multiple types of technology. It's not only one against the other, it is all working together.
So I certainly have more questions. I'm sure some of you in the audience will as well, on the basis of what they've said. Please give a big round of applause to these lovely gentlemen and for what they've shared with us today. Thank you so much for being such a lovely audience. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Do stay on stage. We have to give you a token of our appreciation.